I'm giving you one chance, human, do it now, or never. Nyara Tavel's voice cut through the stark white silence of the Interstellar Commerce Division like a blade. Not loud. Not desperate. Just sharp enough to make Pierce Michelson stop mid-motion with his hands still on the edge of his desk. It was 10:30 p.m. The headquarters on New Terra Station should have been asleep, only the distant hum of environmental systems and the soft flicker of holographic displays remained. Pierce had stayed late to finish quarterly compliance reports, the kind that kept trade lanes stable and prevented small political fires from becoming wars. The kind of work nobody thanked you for until it wasn't done. He glanced up, expecting a routine question, maybe a last-minute correction. Instead, he saw Nyara leaning against his office doorway like she'd been waiting for this exact moment. Her skin, verdant green, smooth and faintly iridescent, caught the lighting in a way that made the shadows look sharper around her. Her dark green hair fell in a glossy cascade over her shoulders. Standard office attire, same as everyone else. Yet somehow it looked like it belonged to her more than the station itself did. Still burning the midnight oil, she asked, calm, almost amused. Pierce forced his breathing to remain steady. Nyara wasn't just a colleague, she was one of the most precise analysts in the division, coldly efficient, famously unreadable. The Verdant was said to be disciplined to the point of emotionlessness. That stereotype had been repeated enough in station gossip to become fact. But tonight her eyes had a spark. Just wrapping up reports, Pierce replied, keeping his tone professional even as his pulse misbehaved. You're here late too. Nyara stepped inside and produced a slim bottle from behind her back as if she'd pulled it from thin air. The glass was dark, the liquid inside faintly glowing. Verdant fire, she said. Like your Earth tequila. Better. Pierce raised an eyebrow. Drinking at the office? Live a little, human, she teased, her exotic eyes narrowing with playful challenge. Unless you're scared. Pierce let out a short laugh, surprising even himself. He reached into his drawer and pulled out 2 clean glasses. I survived basic training in the Earth Defense Force. I can handle a drink. Nyara watched him like she was taking measurements. Not of his posture or his rank, of something else. Something beneath the surface. They poured. They drank. The verdant fire burned warm, not harsh, leaving a pleasant glow in his throat and chest. Conversation came easier than it should have. The rigid walls of workplace formality softened with each sip, small jokes, shared complaints about bureaucracy, quiet confessions about how lonely the station could feel even when it was crowded. Pierce found himself smiling more than he had in weeks. When the bottle was almost empty, he gathered the glasses. I'll clean these up. He walked to the utility sink in the corner of his office, his back turned to her, rinsing glass under perfectly recycled water. Behind him, her voice changed. Not louder. Not softer. Just different. A tremor beneath the control. Pierce. He turned and nearly dropped the glasses. Nyara stood near his desk, her office jacket gone. Her hair fell free. The station lights painted her verdant skin in shimmering gradients. She wasn't trying to look casual anymore. She wasn't trying to look like a coworker. And then she said it again, slower, like every word was a door she'd decided to open and couldn't close now. I'm giving you one chance, human male. Do it now, or never. Pierce froze. He wasn't a rookie. He wasn't naive. He could recognize a bold invitation when it stood right in front of him. But something in Nyara's eyes stopped him from responding like a careless man. Uncertainty. A flicker of fear she was trying to crush into obedience. Her hands trembled only slightly, like she was fighting her own body. This wasn't just lust. It was a decision. A leap. And Pierce realized, with a sudden weight in his chest, that whatever was happening, whatever she was asking, mattered to her in a way she didn't know how to explain. He set the glasses down carefully, as if the smallest clatter would break something fragile in the room. Nyara, he said quietly, stepping closer but not touching her, giving her space to retreat if she wanted. You don't have to. Yes, she interrupted, voice tight. I do. For a long moment they just stared at each other. The station lights hummed. The air felt charged. Like a storm building behind glass. Then Pierce made his choice. Not as a man chasing a moment, but as a man who recognized another person standing at the edge of something terrifying and important. He reached for her hand, gentle, steady. And the instant his skin touched hers, something unseen snapped into alignment like a silent chord struck in the bones of the station itself. Nyara inhaled sharply. Pierce felt it too. A vibration beneath reality. Not imagined. Not metaphor. Real. And somewhere, far beyond his office walls, the station's quantum sensors flickered, quietly recording a disturbance nobody had ever seen before. The first rays of artificial sunrise filtered through the panoramic windows of Nyara's apartment, casting soft bands of light across unfamiliar walls. Pierce stirred slowly, his senses adjusting to surroundings that felt both foreign and strangely comfortable. The bed beneath him was impossibly soft, engineered verdant fabric that responded to body heat and pressure, nothing like the rigid, utilitarian furnishings of his own quarters. Memory returned in fragments. The office. The choice. The moment his hand touched hers, and the way the air itself had seemed to hum in response. Pierce turned his head. Nyara was awake, seated at the edge of the bed with her back to him. A silken robe draped over her shoulders, barely concealing the faint bioluminescent sheen of her skin in the morning light. Her long dark green hair fell down her back like a curtain, perfectly still. She was staring out at New Terra Station, the endless traffic lanes, the slow rotation of habitation rings, the quiet persistence of life continuing as if nothing extraordinary had happened. "Morning," Pierce said softly, careful not to startle her. Nyara's posture shifted, just a fraction. "Good morning," she replied. Her voice was calm, controlled, but not quite steady. Pierce sat up, letting the sheets fall loosely around his waist. "You all right?" For a moment, she didn't answer. Then she shook her head once, slowly. "Perhaps it would be better if we didn't discuss what happened last night." The words landed harder than Pierce expected. "If that's what you want," he said, though disappointment crept into his voice despite his efforts to keep it neutral. "It's not about what I want," Nyara said, finally turning to face him. Her eyes met his briefly before darting away. "It's about professional boundaries. We work together. Things like this," she gestured vaguely between them, "become complicated." "They already are," Pierce replied, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "We can't just pretend nothing happened." Nyara stood and moved toward the window, her steps fluid but restrained, as if she were holding herself together by force of will. "In my culture," she said carefully, "physical intimacy is different. With humans, it's overwhelming. You're so intense. So emotionally present. It's not how we're conditioned." Pierce pulled on his pants from the night before, listening. "Is that a bad thing?" "No," she answered too quickly. Then she stopped herself. "I don't know. The way you touched me, the way you made me feel, my people don't experience intimacy like that. We're clinical." "Clinical?" Pierce couldn't help the faint smile. There was nothing clinical about last night. A darker shade rippled across Nyara's cheeks, a verdant blush. "That's exactly the problem. Humans don't separate emotion from action. You pour yourselves into every moment. We're an all-or-nothing species," Pierce said gently. "Guilty as charged." "I've noticed," she replied dryly, though there was a flicker of amusement in her eyes. "The xenological reports weren't exaggerated." "Reports?" Pierce raised an eyebrow. The Interstellar Xenical Society maintains extensive documentation on human behavioral patterns, she admitted, clearly embarrassed. But reading data and experiencing it firsthand are vastly different. Pierce leaned against the window frame, studying her profile. "Different good, or different bad?" "Different intense," Nyara said after a pause. "You made me feel things I didn't know were possible." "That's frightening." "Because it's new?" Pierce asked. "Or because you liked it?" Her silence answered him more clearly than words ever could. "Look," he said softly, stepping closer but stopping at a respectful distance. "We don't have to figure everything out right now. But we can't ignore it either. What happened meant something, to me, at least." Nyara's fingers traced patterns on the glass. "It meant something to me too. That's what scares me." "Maybe," Pierce suggested, It's time for some new ways. She turned to face him fully, vulnerability and determination warring in her expression. The human way. Our way, he corrected gently. Together. Nyara tested the words as if tasting them. Our way. The station chimed softly in the distance, signaling the start of another work cycle. Pierce checked his comm device. We're going to be late. Yes, she agreed quietly. But not for the reasons they think. As they prepared for work, their movements formed an awkward, careful rhythm, stealing glances, avoiding touch, pretending that the space between them wasn't charged with something unspoken. In the crowded corridors of New Terra Station, they maintained professional distance, nodding politely to colleagues. Yet Pierce noticed how Nyara unconsciously walked in sync with him. How she oriented herself toward him even while trying not to. And somewhere deep within the station's systems, quantum sensors quietly logged another anomaly, small, subtle, and impossible to ignore. The Interstellar Commerce Division was already alive when Pierce and Nyara arrived, its open floors filled with the low hum of conversation and holographic interfaces. The illusion of normalcy pressed in on Pierce the moment he stepped inside, people walking with purpose, data streams scrolling, the machinery of interspecies cooperation grinding forward as if nothing had shifted overnight. But something had. Director Pax Roth stood near Pierce's desk, his tall Centurion frame impossible to miss. Metallic silver skin reflected the ambient light, his expression carved into a permanent mask of discipline and authority. Mikkelsen. Tavel, Roth acknowledged, his voice smooth but measured. The Andromeda Corporation representatives will be joining us virtually for the quarterly review. I expect you both sharp. Of course, Director, Nyara replied. Her tone was flawless, but Pierce caught the faint tremor beneath it. The meeting room filled quickly, holographic projections of various species flickering into place around the table. Pierce found himself seated directly across from Nyara. Their eyes met for a brief second, long enough for the air between them to tighten, before both looked away. Trade regulations. Shipping quotas. Transit corridor adjustments. Routine. And yet every accidental brush of fingers while passing datapads felt like a spark. Pierce noticed Nyara's breathing change when he leaned too close. Not enough for anyone else to see, just enough for him. During a brief recess, Pierce slipped into the office kitchen. Nyara followed moments later, her movements precise as she prepared a cup of verdant tea. Steam curled upward, glowing faintly. About last night, she began, her voice barely above a whisper. We don't have to. No, she turned to face him, eyes intense. Let me finish. Pierce waited. What happened between us, Nyara said, wasn't just physical attraction. When we connected, I felt something I've never experienced before. It was like our energies merged. Pierce stepped closer, mindful of the workplace. I felt it too. In my culture, she continued, we have a term, soul wave resonance. It's considered rare. Almost mythical. A quantum-level compatibility between two beings. He frowned slightly. And it's not supposed to happen between different species. No, Nyara said quietly. Yet here we are. Before either of them could say more, footsteps echoed down the corridor. Nyara withdrew her hand quickly, composure snapping back into place just as other employees entered. The rest of the workday blurred together. Pierce focused on reports, but his attention kept drifting, how Nyara's fingers trembled near him, how her posture subtly leaned toward his desk even when she tried to maintain distance. As the artificial day cycle dimmed, signaling evening on the station, Pierce found a message waiting on his terminal. My quarters. 8 p.m. We need to talk about what this means. His heart thudded as he sent back a simple confirmation. Before he could leave, Director Roth appeared beside him again. Mikkelsen. A moment. Yes, sir? Roth studied him with unreadable silver eyes. I've noticed some tension between you and Tavel today. I trust it won't affect your work performance. Pierce kept his expression neutral. No, sir. Everything is professional. See that it stays that way, Roth said quietly. Cross-species relationships can be complicated. Especially with her kind. Her kind. Pierce repeated, his jaw tightening. The verdant, Roth clarified, almost gently. Their emotional capacity is different. Be careful. Pierce nodded, but internally he rejected the implication. The Nyara he'd seen last night, vulnerable, passionate, deeply present, didn't fit the sterile stereotype Roth described. As Pierce made his way through the station that evening, the corridors felt unusually crowded. The air itself seemed heavy with anticipation. At exactly 8 p.m. hours, he stood before Nyara's door, finger hovering over the chime. The door slid open before he could press it. Nyara stood there in a shimmering emerald dress that complemented her skin perfectly. There was no trace of uncertainty in her posture now, only resolve. "You're exactly on time," she said, a hint of amusement in her voice. "How very human of you. Is that a compliment or a criticism?" Pierce asked, stepping inside. "Neither," she replied, gesturing toward 2 glasses of softly glowing liquid. "Tonight, we need clear heads." As the door sealed behind him, Pierce sensed it again, the same low vibration beneath reality. Whatever was happening between them was no longer private. It was about to become impossible to hide. Nyara's living space was quieter than Pierce expected. No music, no ambient projections, just soft lighting and the distant thrum of new terror station systems. 2 glasses rested on a low table between them, filled with a faintly phosphorescent liquid. "Luminescent wine from the Please cluster," Nyara said, taking her seat across from him. "No alcohol. I thought we should keep our minds clear." Pierce nodded, accepting the glass. Probably wise. She didn't drink immediately. Instead, she studied the slow glow swirling inside her glass, as if arranging her thoughts. "I had a conversation today," she began. "With the Verdant High Council." Pierce's fingers tightened slightly around the stem. "Already?" She gave a humorless smile. "They felt it." "Felt what?" "The quantum disturbance," Nyara said quietly. "When 2 Verdant form a deep bond, it creates a measurable fluctuation in the quantum field. What happened between us produced a similar signature." Pierce set his glass down carefully. "And that's bad." "It's unprecedented," she corrected. "And stronger than anything they've recorded before." He leaned forward. "What do you want?" Nyara laughed softly, but there was no joy in it. "What I want is irrelevant. The council has ordered me to return home for evaluation." Silence settled between them. "And if you go?" Pierce asked. "They'll study it," she said. "Us. The resonance. They'll decide whether it's safe or dangerous." Pierce stood and moved closer, stopping just behind her as she faced the window. Beyond the glass, the station's lights formed constellations of artificial stars. "You said it yourself," he said. "What we felt was real. Maybe it means something." "It means we're dangerous," Nyara whispered, yet she leaned subtly toward him, as if drawn by an invisible force. "Our connection could destabilize centuries of cultural understanding." "Good." The word hung in the air like a challenge. Nyara turned, eyes wide. "Good. Maybe some understanding needs to be destabilized," Pierce said. "That's how progress happens." "The human way," she murmured. "Our way," he replied, lifting his hand to cup her cheek. Her skin was cool, but beneath it he felt a current, alive, humming. The room's lighting flickered faintly, responding to something neither of them could see. A chime interrupted them. Nyara glanced at her comm display. Her expression darkened. "They're not waiting. A council ship will arrive in 3 days." Pierce exhaled slowly. "Then we have 3 days. To say goodbye," she said softly. "Or," Pierce countered, meeting her gaze, "to prove they're wrong." She searched his face, conflict warring with resolve. "It won't be easy. My people are a collective. Defying the council is unthinkable." "When has anything worth having ever been easy?" Pierce asked. Nyara laughed quietly. "Another very human perspective. Get used to it." Their lips met, not rushed, not desperate. When they touched, the quantum resonance became undeniable. The air itself seemed to vibrate. Somewhere deep within the station, sensors spiked and alarms flirted with activation before settling again. When they finally parted, Nyara's skin glowed with bioluminescent patterns Pierce hadn't seen before. That's new, he murmured. A response to extreme emotional states, she explained breathlessly. It's not supposed to happen with non-verdant. I'm sensing a pattern, Pierce said. A lot of things that aren't supposed to happen when we're together. Her fingers traced his chest through his shirt. Humans have a way of making the impossible possible. That's what makes your species fascinating and dangerous. Is that what you believe? She paused. I believe meeting you has changed everything I thought I knew. Later that night, as they lay tangled together, the quantum field around them strengthened. Lights across the room shimmered in aurora-like waves. The council will say this is dangerous, Nyara murmured. Some risks are worth taking, Pierce replied. The next morning, Pierce arrived at work early, plans already forming. The office was quiet when Director Roth appeared beside him, his silver skin reflecting the morning light. Mikkelsen, Roth said sternly. The board is concerned. About what, sir? Unusual quantum fluctuations detected last night. Originating from Tavel's quarters. Pierce met his gaze without flinching. And the Verdant High Council has protocols, Roth replied. Unprecedented ones. Before Pierce could respond, Nyara entered, dressed in a formal Verdant diplomatic uniform. The moment she stepped closer, Roth's holographic display spiked wildly. Fascinating, Roth muttered. Simply being near each other causes entanglement. We're not lab specimens, Pierce said sharply, moving protectively toward her. No, Nyara agreed, her voice steady and powerful. We're proof that old barriers can be broken. The readings surged again. And for the first time, Director Roth looked less certain and more afraid than either of them. The boardroom doors sealed behind them with a muted hiss, cutting off the murmurs of the outer office. Holographic displays flared to life around the table, bathing the room in shifting light. Pierce and Nyara stood side by side, their proximity enough to make the station's quantum sensors spike again, this time openly, visibly. Director Roth didn't sit. Instead, he remained standing, arms clasped behind his back, silver skin reflecting streams of data scrolling in midair. The Verdant High Council has issued a formal notice, he said. They are concerned. That word seems to do a lot of work, Pierce replied evenly. Nyara inhaled, then spoke before Roth could answer. They detected the resonance. Not just between us, but something else. Pierce turned toward her. Something else? Nyara met his eyes. For the first time since they'd met, she looked genuinely shaken. They're sending a medical envoy. They believe our quantum alignment may have triggered a biological anomaly. Pierce felt a slow, cold weight settle in his chest. You mean? Yes, Nyara said softly. They suspect I'm pregnant. The room went silent. Pierce's thoughts scattered, then reassembled into a single, overwhelming certainty. He took her hand without hesitation. The moment their skin touched, the holographic displays flickered violently, data streams warping into spirals of light. Roth stared. That shouldn't be possible. It wasn't, Nyara said, her voice steadying as she straightened. Until now. The medical bay confirmed it hours later. Dr. Mira Chaitam stood before them, eyes wide as she reviewed the holographic scan hovering between them. Within it, a faint but unmistakable quantum signature pulsed in rhythmic harmony with Pierce and Nyara's own. The fetus is stable, she said, almost reverently. More than stable. I've never seen anything like this. The genetic markers are fully integrated, human and verdant, merged at a quantum level. Nyara's hand moved instinctively to her abdomen, her skin lighting with new, intricate patterns. That means. It means, Dr. Chaitam finished, your child is viable. Healthy. And already interacting with its environment. As if on cue, the medical bay lights flickered, then stabilized at a higher efficiency. Nearby instruments recalibrated themselves automatically. Pierce swallowed. So now what? Now, Nyara said quietly, the council won't separate us. They'll try, Pierce replied. But this changes everything. The news spread faster than either of them expected. Station residents whispered. Sensors monitored every fluctuation. And when the Verdant Council ship arrived, it didn't bring soldiers. It brought the high quantum theorist. She entered the station like a living phenomenon, her presence alone altering the ambient field. Tall, elegant, her skin traced with patterns far more complex than Nyara's, she studied them with open fascination rather than judgment. "You were inevitable," the theorist said at last, her voice like resonant crystal. "Your quantum signatures have been harmonizing since your first meeting. The pregnancy is merely the physical confirmation." Nyara blinked. "You're not here to stop us." "Stop you?" The theorist smiled. "I'm here to protect you. From those who fear change." Relief crashed through Pierce, but it didn't soften his resolve. "And our child?" "A bridge," the theorist said simply. "Between species. Between ways of being." Under her authority, the Council's demands evaporated. Instead, protocols were rewritten. A research initiative was established on New Terra Station, under station law, with Pierce and Nyara as equal partners. Weeks passed in a blur of discovery. Their proximity altered systems. Plants in the botanical gardens glowed brighter. Energy efficiency rose. Even interpersonal tensions across the station eased, as if the resonance touched something deeper than machinery. "This isn't just about us anymore," Nyara said one evening, watching the data scroll past. "It's about what becomes possible." Pierce slipped an arm around her. "Then let's make sure it becomes something good." The Council watched. The galaxy took notes. And somewhere deep in the quantum field, a new pattern was forming, one that refused to be undone. 6 months later, the medical bay of New Terra Station pulsed with a kind of energy no instrument could fully explain. Nyara lay on the bioluminescent birthing platform, her skin alive with intricate patterns that rippled and shifted in perfect rhythm with her breathing. Each contraction sent a wave through the quantum field, gentle but unmistakable, causing lights to brighten, systems to recalibrate, and sensors across the station to sing in harmonic alignment. Pierce never left her side. His hand was locked with hers, grounding her, steadying both of them. He felt it too now, not just the resonance between them, but something new layered on top of it. A third presence. Smaller, brighter, impossibly focused. "The field is stabilizing," Dr. Meera Chaitam said in awe, watching the holographic readouts. "It's not chaotic. It's adaptive. Like it's creating the perfect conditions for birth." High quantum theorist Nyara stood nearby, her own skin glowing faintly in response. "Of course it is," she murmured. "This child was never meant to arrive into conflict. The field knows." Hours passed in a blur of effort, pain, encouragement, and unwavering connection. And when their son finally arrived, the station itself seemed to breathe. A pulse of quantum light washed through every deck, soft, warm, stabilizing. Not a surge. Not an explosion. A harmonization. Nyara laughed through tears as she cradled their child. His skin was a seamless blend of human and verdant traits, warm to the touch, faintly luminous, alive with subtle geometric patterns that pulsed in time with 3 heartbeats. "Kieran," she whispered. "Quantum light," Pierce said softly. "Because he's illuminating a new path." The baby opened his eyes, human in shape, iridescent in depth, and the quantum field settled into a steady, enduring harmony. Station systems locked into peak efficiency. Environmental balances optimized themselves. Even the distant hum of New Terra sounded calmer. "It's permanent," Dr. Chaitam confirmed, voice shaking with wonder. "His presence has stabilized the station at a quantum level." Nyara smiled. The first of many gifts. In the weeks that followed, the effects became undeniable. Crop yields in hydroponics increased. Medical recovery times shortened. Long-standing interpersonal disputes eased without intervention. It was as if Kieran's existence introduced a new baseline, one where cooperation came more naturally, where systems aligned instead of resisted. The Verdant Council protested at first. Then hesitated. Then watched. And finally, they conceded. Pierce and Nyara were granted full legal protection under station sovereignty. Their son was recognized as a citizen of New Terra Station. And the Quantum Integration Research Institute was formally established, with Pierce and Nyara as its founding directors. 3 months later, Pierce stood beside Nyara in their new office, watching their son sleep peacefully in a quantum-stabilized crib. Holographic displays showed data from dozens of systems and, increasingly, from other human-alien pairs coming forward. "We're not alone anymore," Nyara said quietly. "No," Pierce agreed. "We never were." Director Roth's image appeared on their comm screen, silver features curved into something that almost resembled a smile. "The board has approved full funding for the next decade. The institute will operate independently, with diplomatic status." After the call ended, Nyara turned to Pierce with a familiar glint in her eyes, the same look she'd worn that first night in his office. "Remember when I said it was now or never?" she teased. Pierce laughed softly. "Hard to forget." "I thought I was taking a risk," she said, watching Kieran glow gently in his sleep. "But the universe had already decided, hadn't it?" Pierce pulled her close, resting his forehead against hers. "We just had the courage to listen." That evening, as they stood by the observation window watching the stars drift past, the quantum field around them hummed in perfect balance, human determination, verdant sensitivity, and something entirely new woven between them. "The human way?" Nyara asked playfully. "Our way," Pierce corrected. And somewhere deep within the fabric of reality itself, new harmonies formed, proof that when love defied fear, even the universe learned how to change.